terrified. And this book is all about war and peace. Literally on the title. Hello my loves, and thank you for joining me. It's Kirsten, and today we're doing a video that you all voted on, which is the most intimidating books on my TBR. And yes, they are huge. I actually got this video idea from Reagan over at Peruse Project. She did this whole video. I'll have her channel linked below so you can go have a look, where she actually has prompts to answer all of these books. So it's not just the big books. There are all sorts of different reasons, and I think we're just going to get straight into it because I think you get the idea. I'm scared to read these, and I'm going to give you a list of reasons why. So the first question on here is book I've not been able to finish. And for this I'm going with Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. I was actually meant to buddy read this ages ago with Chris. I'll have her channel linked below. She has a review up for it, and I did not do that at all. It was so terrible. I felt so bad. She didn't really enjoy this book, and I managed probably the first chapter. I did not get far into this at all. I still want to read it because I am fascinated with the Tudor time period. This book is following the rise and fall of Anne Boleyn when she was married to Henry VIII, and I find that fascinating. And so I really went through a phase of buying loads of books that are around that. However, historical fiction is something, while I do enjoy, I really have to be in the mood for it. It's something that I always put off reading, and I could not tell you why, but it really is. And yeah, this is definitely one that I want to read because I think it's going to be really good, but I am intimidated by, one, because of the sheer size of this, and two, because of the fact it is historical fiction, so that does put me off a little bit. And like I say, then hearing that Chris had such a difficult time with it when we were meant to be buddy reading it, I felt really bad, and it's also made me put this off even more. I think I might have to do a whole video maybe next year of like, if I don't read these books within the year, they're going to self-destruct, and I think this book would definitely be on it because I just can't see myself reading it this year, and it would be the second year that I've owned it and not read it. So yeah, this one, a book I've started but have not finished. You'll have to let me know if you've read it and if it's any good, but yeah, this particular one is actually following Thomas Cromwell, who is kind of the reason behind the fall of Anne Boleyn, and that's the reason why I want to read it, because I think it would be really interesting to read it from his perspective, but we are following it from when he was a child. It's not just around the court intrigue, so I think it's going to be a bit of a slow slog at the start of this, which is another hesitation. I think you get the point. I'm nervous. It is pretty though. I love that edition. It's gold, obviously, because you saw that. Anyway, second one. So this is a series of I haven't read the book because, and then a different reason why. So the first one is I haven't had the time. And I didn't know how to take this one, but I've kind of taken it as it's not been the right time for me to read it, and that is Anne Radcliffe's The Mysteries of Udolpho. This is a book that I've wanted to read because it's referenced so much in other books, specifically Northanger Abbey. That really got me interested in it. Also Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin, he highly recommends Anne Radcliffe's works. He does actually prefer the other book by her, the Italian, I believe it's called. But I do really want to read this one because it's referenced. It's also referenced in a young adult book that I was reading in March, and that is Monstrous Design, and it referenced that book at the time of a gothic story that was at the time. I'm sorry about this lighting, it's going in and out. I use natural lighting and it's a little bit cloudy. I feel like I haven't had the time because I want to read it in October, going into winter. I feel like this would be a really good book for them because this is a gothic masterpiece, and we're following a heroine called Emily who finds herself imprisoned in her evil guardian Count Montoni's gloomy medieval fortress in the remote Apennines. Terror is the order of the day inside the walls of Udolpho as Emily struggles against Montoni's rapacious schemes and the threat of her own psychological disintegration. A bestseller in its day and a potent influence on Poe, like Edgar Allan Poe. He's always seen as such this big author as like influencing other things. I struggle with his writing, but the fact that she was an influence on them, I really want to read that. I love seeing the influence behind other authors. So that's why I want to read this one. But I do feel like it's not the right time. I really want to read it at a certain point in the year. I just didn't last year, and I do keep putting it off because I feel like it's not the time to read it, and I am also a bit intimidated by it. So I feel like I'm going to love it. That's the thing. I feel like most of these books I'm going to love. I just haven't picked them up because I'm scared. And the next one is, I haven't read this because it's a sequel, and this one I kind of went with, I could have gone with a book that's a sequel that I haven't got around to because I still need to read the first book and I'm intimidated by it, but I don't really have many that I was intimidated by. Generally speaking, I only ever buy the first book until I've read, and then I will read the second book. But one that I am intimidated by, and it is a sequel, is Master Artificer by Justine Cool. I'm intimidated for the sheer size, and also because the third book isn't out yet. And I know obviously when it first gets published it's going to be in hardback, and if I really like this, then I'm going to be really frustrated at waiting to read it in paperback so I can read this, because I like my books to match. Yes, it's a thing, but is what it is. This first book was Master of Sorrows, and I did like it. However, it is a bit slow. I have high hopes because Ashley from Frolic Free Fiction loves this series. Like, she adores it so much. The first book is one of her favourite books, and I picked it up because of her. However, I have another book series that I've been slowing down reading. Honestly, I have so many books in series that I need to actually get to, it's ridiculous, that I kind of prefer, so I've been putting it off. However, before I even read this one, I think I'm gonna have to reread the first one, so that is another reason why I've been putting it off, because it's the second book in this epic fantasy series following a boy who's been brought up to believe that magic is really bad. However, magic is keeping him alive, and so he sees the really good implications of it, and it's a really interesting world, and I like the concepts behind it all. It's also meant to be a villain origin story, so I'm really intrigued to see where it goes, and the ending definitely left me wanting more, but it was a slow start, and I don't know if I want to reread it, but I feel like I should reread it to properly refresh my memory in time to pick up this book. So it's also been the reason why I've been dragging my feet about reading this one. It's huge, and I don't know if I want to reread the first book. I feel like maybe I'll prefer it on reread, but I don't know. I don't know. But plus, apart from Ashley, I actually haven't heard anyone talking about this series. It's actually kind of underrated, so I feel like I do want to read it, because that way if I like it, I can let you know, and it's like an underrated series that needs a bit more hype, but it's huge. Okay, so then we have It's New, so a book I haven't read because it's new, and the newest one I picked up that is a tome and that I'm scared to read is War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. I don't know what to say. I mentioned this in a vlog about there have been so many people that have influenced me to pick up this book. I'm also really in a classics mood at the minute. I am filming this in March, so it's always filmed early, but at this current time I'm such a classic mood, and I really did decide that this year is going to be the year of War and Peace. I probably should have done a reread of Anna Karenina instead, because I feel like I would prefer it on reread, and then I'll get a better appreciation of his writing before tackling this tome. But instead my mind went, no, we're just going to do it, and that's what I'm doing. But it is the newest one, so that's why I haven't read it yet, but it is hella intimidating because of the size of it. So again, this question you can take to new to you or new in general, but this is clearly not a new book, but it is a new book to me. And yeah, I'm terrified. And this book is all about war and peace. Literally on the title. I know that was really bad, but what can I say? There's been two videos in particular that's really incentivized me to pick it up. One is by Throwing Up Pages and one is by Emmy. They've both read this book and they both did dedicated videos on it, and it's really got me intrigued, and so we're gonna give this a try. Let me know if you read it, let me know if you like it. It's going to be a hard one, but I think it would be worth it, fingers crossed, even just to say that I've read it. So we'll see. But that is the newest intimidating book that I've got. Okay, then we have read another book by the same author that I didn't love, and for this one it's actually a small book. I say small book, it's part one of a small book, and that is Lord of the Rings by J.R. Tolkien. So this is the Fellowship of the Ring, and you've heard me talk about this a lot because it's on my 30 to read before I turn 30. It's on my spring TBR. It's been on so many freaking videos because I really want to read this. I mean, it's classic fantasy. We all know the story of Lord of the Rings, or at least I assume, because it's classic. I mean, you've had the films, you've had the books, you've had, so it's good. And I love the films. I grew up watching the films. And that also makes me worried because what if I prefer the films to the book? I don't know. Sometimes that happens. If I've watched the film first, I get a concept of how much it is, and I love the films. Like, I adore them. I would honestly rewatch them if I had a TV in my room, because I do. I think they're so good. And so part of me is worried to read this book. And obviously this original book was just meant to be Lord of the Rings, but they split it into 3 books for publishing. However, I read The Hobbit and I didn't love it. I loved the audiobook narrator and I thought that was fantastic. It was read by Andy Serkis, I'm sorry, I can normally say that name really well, but it's not happening today. But he was the voice for Gollum, and it was a fantastic reading experience. And I do think if I listen to an audiobook of this, I will enjoy it that bit more. So maybe I'll listen and read at the same time and really have an immersive experience, which isn't something I've done before, but I think it would really work. I am intimidated because I've also heard some mixed things about the writing, about how it's overly descriptive at times, and I don't mind that if it's beautiful descriptions, but I don't know what type of descriptions this is going to be. So yeah. That fits that question, because I didn't enjoy The Hobbit, so it's really got me even more worried about the fact that not only do I love the film, so I'm worried about reading the book, and not only have I heard its really dense descriptions, but also I wasn't a fan of one of his books already, so we're gonna see. I'm still gonna do it. I'm going to do it. I think May is the month. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna challenge myself to read it in May, at the start of May, before I turn 30. You've heard it here. The next one is I Haven't Been in the Mood, which, to be fair, all of them fitted that. However, I do have The Odyssey, and this is the translation by Emily Wilson, and I've wanted to read this translation because obviously it's by a female, and the last book that I read by Homer, which was the Iliad, was translated by a male. I'd really love to see a female's concept and translation of this and just see if I prefer the writing of it. This is a beautiful edition. It's got deckled edges. Now, the reason why I've been putting this off, one, I haven't been in the mood for this. I have been in the mood for Greek myth because I've been reading Ovid's Metamorphoses, making my slow way through that, but what I found with the Iliad is that the writing is really repetitive. So the description of a person or a god that was introduced would then be repeated every single time they came onto the scene. Also, this is epic poetry, and again, that's something I've really got to be in the mood for, and this is also one that I really want to dissect and annotate, take my time with, so it's going to take a lot more brain power than something like a normal novel will. So yeah, I haven't been in the mood, but I really do want to read this. And I think there is an Iliad translation by Emily Wilson. Don't quote me on that, but if there is, I definitely want to get it. Editing Kirsten, find out and let me know. But if there is, yeah, then I would love to get that and even reread it. Again, this is something that's probably going to take me years to do, but it would be really nice to reread that and compare it with the original translation that I read and see what the differences are, but we'll see. Here's one I want to read. I'm not in the mood for it at the minute. And I don't know when I will be. It might take me a couple years or so, but I'm okay with that. I will get to it. Okay, then we have It's Huge. This one is actually a non-fiction book. Can we just see the size of this non-fiction book? And this one I can thank my mum for. And this is The Brontes, and this is by Juliet Barker, and it is a complete non-fiction book about the different Brontes, not just the 3 sisters, but also their brother. And I really want to read it because I am super intrigued about reading more non-fiction, as well as reading non-fiction about authors I really like, and I like all of the Bronte sisters' works. I like all 3 of them as authors. I really enjoy, and I think it would just be fascinating to learn more about them, about their life. This is 1,000 pages long, and that intimidates me. One, because it's non-fiction, and so non-fiction is something that I'm trying to read a bit more of, but it's not something I gravitate towards all the time. And the fact that it's huge, those 2 things combined makes me instantly intimidated. What I'll probably do is break this up into like sections and read it slowly, but it's definitely going to be one that I'm chipping away at for a very long time. I'm very grateful to my mum for getting it for me. She found it in a charity shop, picked it up because she knew I was interested in reading more about the Bronte sisters. But I mean, it's huge. So it perfectly fitted this prompt because huge, absolutely ginormous. Do you read much non-fiction? Is it something you gravitate towards? I feel some people read a lot of non-fiction, like Jan, I'll have her channel linked below. She reads a non-fiction book every single month as a minimum, and I find that so impressive. Last year I managed 2. So this year I'm going to try and read 4. We're going to see if we can double it, 1 for each season. We're going to see how it goes, but I just don't find myself gravitating towards it as often, so we'll see. I have a very small non-fiction collection. Okay, then we have a book I bought for the cover but have heard mixed reviews afterwards. And this one was a cover buy but also an author automatic buy, and that is A Star Shall Fall by Marie Brennan. And this cover I really enjoyed, but I saw it in the bookshop and I saw this cover, saw the author and automatically bought it. Didn't even look into it. I was just like, yep, that's coming home with me, because Marie Brennan is the author of the Lady Trent series, starting with A Natural History of Dragons, and it's one of my favourite series. I absolutely love it. I think it's amazing writing. I've also read another book by her, which was Mask of Mirrors, but that is co-written with another author, and again, I absolutely love it. And so, of course, I picked it up straight away. However, I have heard some mixed things. When you're looking into reviews, it's really hit or miss. This is actually a 3rd book in a series, and it has been said that this 3rd book, you don't need to read the other books in order. They all take place 100 years apart, and that the 3rd book is the best. So I don't know if I'm going to read it in order or not. It's not a book series I see often. It's not a book series I see anyone talking about. So all of those things make me a little bit intimidated. So it's on there because I do love Marie Brennan's writing, as in on my TBR, but it really is low on the list, and I am a little bit intimidated by it because it could be one of those things of this is one of her earlier works, and so she was just kind of stretching her writing wings and it's not quite as developed. I don't know. So I'm a little bit intimidated, but I still have kind of high hopes because I like Marie Brennan. But I also really need to decide whether I get the first 2 books and read those. So actually this would have worked better for it's a sequel, because it literally is the 3rd book in a series. And I don't own the other 2. Should have thought about that. But it also works for this because, you know, it's beautiful and it was an automatic buy without thinking about it. Anyway, we are down to the last book, and that is simply the most intimidating book on my TBR, and this is another historical fiction book. It was a work colleague's recommendation. It's his favourite book and he highly recommended it, and when he was talking about it, another work colleague chimed in that had read it and was like, oh my god, it's absolutely amazing. And I was like, you know what, sure, I'm gonna give this a try. I do like some historical fiction. Apparently it's a bit darker at times and stuff. Yeah, what I didn't realise was the sheer size. I mean, it's huge. It's absolutely huge, and that's Ken Follett's The Pillars of the Earth. Now, it is really highly rated, actually. It's actually, when I go onto Goodreads and rank all of my books as to highest rated, it's one of the top ones. It is really highly rated. But I am terrified. Look at this tome. I also think potentially it's the start of a series, or Ken Follett's written more books at this time. I don't know fully. But I picked this up from a charity shop because of the recommendation, and yeah, I've been sitting on it. It'll be coming up to a year soon, and I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm scared of the size. I'm scared of the fact that it's historical fiction. I just, yeah, terrified. It does sound really good, and from what the colleagues were telling me, it does sound like something I'm really going to enjoy, but holy moly, that's going to be some dedication. I say all of this, and yet I have read all of the current Stormlight Archive books that are out, and look at the sheer size of this book. It's huge, absolutely huge, and if you compare it, it's not even that much bigger. Like, I actually think this one's a bit smaller. How many pages? This is like 1,200 pages. This one is just over 1,000, so it's actually smaller. And I could say that about a lot of these books on the TBR, like, it's smaller than a Brandon Sanderson Stormlight Archive book, and yet I'm more scared of all of these books that I have mentioned than I am of picking up this. And it could just be because of the amount of love that I have for fantasy as a genre, so I find it less intimidating. but I have a couple of fantasy books on this list, so who actually knows? Maybe it's just because I love the series, I don't know. But I think I've developed big book fear, and I never used to have it. Like, a big book used to get me so excited because I'd be like, yes, this is going to keep me engrossed for days. And now I look at a book and I'm like, oh, you're over like 500 pages? I'm not sure. And it's why? I don't know. But there we are. That's the end of this. A massive ramble. But all of these books I do want to read. I am just scared of them for the said reasons. And you're going to have to let me know if you've read any of them, if you think I should be prioritising them more than what I am. Let me know. And also let me know, what is the book you're most intimidated by on your TBR? Was a book that you've put off reading for ages, or however long ages is for you, because you're intimidated by it for whatever reason? Let me know that in the comments below. I think that'd be really interesting. But that is it. We're at the end. So thank you so much for watching. I think, you know what, this calls for a book stack emoji because these books are huge. Like, there's not even many books here, and yet it's massive. Like, it's such a big pile. I'm still rambling at you. I'm sorry. This is actually a shorter video for me, and they're normally long because I don't stop talking. But I will stop talking now. I will leave you in peace. So thank you so much for watching. As I said, if you made it this far, thank you so much. And leave a book stack emoji to let me know in the comments. And yeah, if you've enjoyed this video, please do give it that thumbs up, subscribe, and comment. Those 3 things really help this channel out and help it to grow. Everyone that I've mentioned and my social media links will be linked below, and I will of course catch you in the next video.